For your remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome Dr. Hee-sun Kim. So, Professor Kim Hee-sun, Professor of Ethnomusicology at Kookmin University. Before we begin, I would like to briefly introduce Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim Hee-sun is a Professor of Ethnomusicology at Kookmin University in Seoul, and she also serves as an Executive Director of World Music Cultural Foundation. Professor Kim received her BA and Master's degree from Seoul National University, and subsequently she completed her doctorate from Pittsburgh University in the United States in the field of ethnomusicology. She also worked as Research Fellow at the University of Singapore and her alma mater, Seoul National University. Professor Kim is a prolific and productive writer who has defined new frontiers of inquiry in her own field. She wrote a book called Contemporary Korean Music in Korea, Tradition, Modernity and Identity. And she also contributed several papers to different journals, including the most renowned and influential journals in her field, like Asian Musicology and the World of Music. For more details, please look at her introduction here and at your leisure time. But without much ado, now I invite Professor Kim to deliver her lecture. Thank you. So, okay, let's welcome Professor Kim. We look forward to your interesting.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Since I'm very tall enough, I don't know if you can see me from the back. Okay. Good evening, and thank you, Director Yang, and then thank you, Professor, for the kind introduction. And before I begin my lecture, I should mention that it is my honor and pleasure to be here tonight and to share the secret of how I got invited. And Director Yang, actually we were from the same university, University of Pittsburgh, and then we met the conference, international conference, over the summer, and he just called me after the conference. So I was so delighted, and so he invited this lecture, but he never mentioned that it will be a videotaped, and that there is a website and such a nice body of audience here. So I was a bit nervous in the beginning, and then still I am, but it is my honor to be here tonight, and I want to share my own story, and so I hope you have enjoyed it. And then before, also I would like to thank the Professor Yang and also Academy of Korean Studies to give me such a wonderful opportunity to give a talk tonight. I wonder how many of you heard Kookak, or what we call Korean music and dance before? Just few? Maybe, I think most of us, yeah. And then I wonder if you enjoyed it. Yes? Okay, yeah, maybe we do, but not many Koreans do. And then that is a kind of problem that the musicians are facing, and then how we make this music enjoyable to the modern audiences. That was the basic questions, but also at the same time there's a lot of other problems. They have to there's lots of competitor since in the dawn of the century. Many people think that the most the challenge for Korean traditional music was Western art music, but actually it was not just only Western art music. There was total like entertainment, popular entertainment entertainment form, for example, like movies and other like TVs and radios, all different kinds of popular entertainment form was actually competitor for the Kugak, because during the Joseon Dynasty, it was really a popular entertainment form for the normal people. So that kind of thing happened in the early 20th century. So what I would like to do today is to kind of try to capture the story of what is going on, what happened to Kugak since the 20th century. Today's topic is about how Kugak has survived and adapted and adopted into modern society. And then I will talk about not only how musical repertoires are transmitted, but I want to talk about how musicians strive to survive under the specific social condition like new modern nation, Korea. So after the collapse of the Joseon Dynasty, its music became the music of the past, or Kugak, literally means national music. During the 20th century, Japanese music Joseon music faced serious competition from various newly introduced forms of popular entertainment and Western art music in education and other institutions. Joseon court music was the most seriously threatened genre in comparison to other folk art categories like pansori, epic music, and minyo, folk songs, which were actively appropriated and adopted for the new environment of the time. Previous studies on the 20th century modernization of traditional music in non-Western societies have drawn theories of Westernization, which however only explain the phenomenon in generalized and oversimplified terms, and which cannot explain specific situations in individual localities, like that of Kugak in Korea. The process of modernization in the case of Korean traditional music should be examined in its social culture and history culture context, including modernization and nationalism. At the same time, for the practitioners of traditional music, modernization was not the result of Westernization, but rather a process of constructing self-identity and legitimacy under the specific social conditions of 20th century Korea. The modernization of traditional music involved a process of constructing and then modernizing traditional music. With that in mind, this lecture sketches the social culture context, discourses, and multi-dimensional processes involved in modernizing Kugak from the early 20th century up to its current pace. With Kugak as a prism, I hope this lecture will examine the multiple layers of Korean modernization, as well as the meaning of Kugak within the social cultural landscape of contemporary Korea. Just before I begin my lecture, I just briefly give some of the information about myself. Actually, I was a kayagum player. My major in the university was a kayagum. So I began my college years, and then I found that there's something weird, something is not right, because not many people are really enjoying my music. So that was my kind of questions. What is it? Why is that? And then what happened to this music? My music is Korean music. I'm Korean, and then other people are Korean. And then nobody is listening to my music. So what is going on? So that was the big question that I have to solve. So that question is continued to my studies when I go abroad, when I try to become an ethnomusicologist. So this is kind of my story too. So this is the outline. I will start from the social cultural context of the music of Joseon, and then I will move to Kugak during the 20th century. status of Korean traditional music during the early 20th century. Then I will move to like the recovery and the invention of tradition, Korean music and nationalism, the institutionalization of Kookak and the discourses of modernization and popularization during the 1980s, and then also the toward the globalization of Kookak since the 1990s and 2000s. So it is mostly like just modern history of Kookak, at the same time how it has adopted and adapted to a modern society. So to understand the situation and then modern development of Kookak, it is better to understand the social cultural context of the music of Joseon, since the body of Kookak is inherited from that of Joseon. Maybe before we go to other topic, maybe we have to talk about a little bit about the term Kookak itself. The Kookak was not the term that was really used in Joseon dynasty. They didn't have such a term, and actually the term emerged in the late 19th century to distinguish indigenous music after introduction of Western art music, yang art. So that is the kind of term that was invented during the late 19th century. Still, a lot of people are having problems to just call this music as Kookak too. The Joseon dynasty, they have different kinds of music, and it is better to understood here. So during the Joseon dynasty, music was enjoyed by different class of people to serve various functions along with its political, cultural, religious, and social boundaries. In Joseon court, various functional music, including ritual, banquet, and ceremonial music and dance were performed to serve the glory of the dynasty and practice the national ideology like Neo-Confucianism. Court music and dance were performed at various occasions, from the state sacrificial rites to ancestral and other spiritual rituals, and formal banquets and ceremonies, and as required by the Confucian Code of Proper Conduct. And also at the Joseon Dynasty court, various kinds of ensembles were maintained and differentiated in terms of procedure, purpose, and the format and gender, and the rank of the occasion. And then these ensembles differed in role and size, instrumentation, and then even gender and the status of the musician. For example, like for the sacrificial rites, low-ranking musicians cannot perform there. And then also even female musicians or female dancers could not go into. The only females are allowed to perform in the banquet. And then also for the private spaces for the loyal female members, only female musicians and dancers and or blind male musicians could go enter. So that all different kinds of ensembles have a different functions and different sizes, and then that was what happened in court music. And the second category of Joseon was the Pungyu music, where we can say is literati music. Pungyu music practiced Neo-Confucianism among Yangban elite class, performed privately, and then later Pungyu activities were also enjoyed by the wealthy middle class since after the mid-Joseon dynasty. Pungyu music was not just a repertoire of music, but was a specific culture called Pungyubang culture or Pungyu culture. So Pungyubang is a Pungyubang salon, Pungyu salon, so Pungyu space. So you can have Pungyu activities there. So you can come and enjoy music and art and poetry, and then they share a friendship. Participants of Pungyu kept its tradition as elegant and exclusive, and a distinguished culture that was enjoyed by members of high society purely for entertainment during leisure hours. Literally gathered together at the literacy private salon, where they gathered to enjoy music, art, poetry, and the most of all, friendship. The main purpose of the Pungyubang remained cultivating one's culture as suggested by Confucian teaching. I have some photos. Maybe the first photo on top is Jongmyo Jereak, the royal ancestral shrine music and dance. And then maybe the last two drawings in the bottom is maybe shows the Pungyu activities, how musicians play together with the Yangban musicians too. And then these are some of the photos from the folding screen, Pyeongpung. and then it depicts some of the banquets happened in the court. So maybe you can still see in the bottom there's some musicians ensembles in different sizes and shapes with a different musical instrument, and then maybe on upper part of the drawings you still can see some of the dance forms, like I can see here like pogurak dance and then drum dance. And then here on your right, I can see Seonyurak dance. Seonyurak is a boat dance. They actually is a very large scale performance with the dancers. They sat on the boat in the middle of the circle of the dancers, and then they just go around. This really symbolizes like embark of foreign ambassadors. So this is quite a meaningful dance. And this kind of whole performance is very large scale, and then it happened in all different functions in the court. And then the third category of music is a folk music. So maybe folk songs, like what we call as minyo and chapga, and then or farmers band music, what we call as 풍물. Actually, the currently minyo folk song is divided into two categories, like song of the people, like that is a local repertoires that is sung in association with work and play or entertainment or labor, or what we call as work. And then sometimes they have a like a ritual function, like they sung for somebody's death. So that kind of ritual, they always have a certain folk songs too. In contrast, and then the other category of minyo is a tongsok minyo, what we call as a popular folk song. That is like widespread and sung by semi-professional or professional singers, and these are also a modern development. So during the Joseon Dynasty, only regional folk song was performed, and then this like later like popular folk song was mass mediated, and then that becomes a nationwide kind of circulation. And the 풍물 was quite popular until the early and the mid 20th century in countryside in Korea. 풍물, we can call it as farmers band music. Sometimes people usually say it's 농악, but that is not a correct term. 농악 is actually a Japanese term that transliterated into Korean, but during the Joseon Dynasty there's no such term as 농악, farmers band music. So that is direct translation of 농악, the farmers band music, but in Joseon Dynasty that was called as 풍물. And then as you might know, the 사물놀이 is a kind of a brother genre of 풍물, but actually 사물놀이 is also modern development that began during the late 1970s, so that is a new development. This 풍물 also was widely performed by village people and served various functions for agricultural Joseon society. 풍물 is performed with the percussion music and dance, and typically 풍물 performed in the past by an ensemble of usually male villagers, and playing on gongs and drums mostly. 풍물 served a musical accompaniment in the often overlapping context of labor, ritual, and entertainment. And as I said, 사물놀이 is a modern development. And the first category of traditional music is folk art music, which is performed mostly by the professional artists like 판소리 and 산조. Maybe I believe that you all know what is 판소리, right? So I will not go further. So these are really most artistic music in 국악 field and the traditional society too. And then modern development of 판소리 is a 창극 that is developed during the early 20th century. So maybe nowadays we have all different types of genres of 국악, but still some of them are really transmitted from Joseon Dynasty. Some are newly developed for the modern society. And then the last category of music of the Joseon Dynasty is religious music. Maybe Buddhist ritual music and the shaman ritual music and the Confucian ritual music that was mostly performed in court. Since Korea's material and spiritual culture has been deeply rooted in shamanism and Buddhism, its music, ritual, dance were performed in each context. Still, Buddhist music, what we call as 범패, is performed in the Buddhist ritual, not every day, but quite often. And then shaman ritual music and dance is also still practicing even in Seoul area. So if you go to Bugaksan, there's a lot of shaman places, so you can still go there. And then the most important point of shaman music is most of Korean music, like pansori and sanjo, actually are from the shaman music. So many scholars believe that the shaman music is really essence of Korean music, and then that has a long history from the ancient period. Okay, I have some pictures. So maybe on the right you can see the pansori performance. There's always audience and then drummer, kosu, and also there's some alcohol there. Okay, and then also on top on the left, that is a choyongmu. So the dancers are wearing very big face, dark skin color face, choyong. That is actually performed in the court. And then this is the picture that is outside of the court. Is on the outside of the court. There's lots of banquets. So this is the picture, and then also the other one is the rope working. It's like one of the folk plays. So still you can see this performer entertainers wearing the monk's dress, and then you can see other performers wearing the shaman dress. Okay. So now I'll move to the Kugak during the 20th century. The social culture connotations of Kugak have been complicated by their relationship to the various ideological structures of modern South Korea, including the imperialism of the Japanese colonial period from 1910 to 1945, the ethnic nationalism following independence from 1950s to 1960s, the strong nationalistic essentialism of the military dictatorship from 1960s to 80s, and the new culture national partner with globalization from 1980s to present. In many aspects, the 19th century was the heyday of traditional music for Korea. However, with the beginning of the 20th century, traditional music met a rapid change caused by the introduction of modern system of music curriculum and a new way of music consumption. Such alternative forms of entertainment were either autonomously born or transplanted by force in the 20th century, like radio and recordings and magazines were introduced by Japanese colonial powers from the 1920s, following which Japanese and American pop culture imported since the Second World War began bombarding the fields of traditional Korean music. During the Japanese colonial period, modern media and the new entertainment industry and the Western art music introduced to Korea, decline of court music was obvious because there was no dynasty at this moment. As I said earlier, the court music served the function to the glory of the dynasty, and then there's no dynasty. So that was very obvious that court music was no use, no longer has its own function. During the Joseon dynasty, they have a special institute within the court to govern the activities and all the activities related to music or rituals or banquets, and that the institute was called as Changak-won, the Royal Music Institute. Then that changed its name to Lee-Wang-jik Akbu. That means Yi Dynasty Court Music Department under the control of the Japanese government, and also they greatly reduced the number of musicians. The heyday of the court music, they counted about more than 700 musicians in the court, but later only like 57 musicians remained during this period. After the annexation and the collapse of the royal ceremonies, court music lost its ground as budget cuts and the contraction of organization threatened the very existence of the royal lineage. Okay, so I will show you some photos of this period. And this is the photo. Maybe you can compare with the the drawings of the Joseon dynasty. It was very glorious and then big size, larger scale. And this is what happened during the 1910th. It is a 종묘제례악, 문묘제례악. It's a ritual music scene, and the very few musicians left. So I will go on to the situation of folk music is a little bit better than court music in this early modern period. Modern theaters as means of new performance context. The several theaters opened, for example, like Hyomyulsa in 1902. Then they closed down. The theater closed down in 1906, and it changes its name to Wongaksa in 1906. And the Yeonheungsa and the Dansongsa and the Gwangmudae, they opened in 1907. So folk music genres were actively appropriated and adopted for the new environment of the time. So they just, for example, like Pansori changed to Changguk, and then they just kind of tried to set up some of this, like a standard of concert form, like some of the beat of folk music genres and then vocal music, instrumental music. So they tried to adopt themselves into a modern theater, and then also tried to kind of fit their music to the needs of the modern audience at the time. And also at the same time, several musicians have a recording of their own, and then also through the broadcasting like radios, and they were actually very much their music or their name is quite nationwide circulated. So some of the folk musicians or pansori singers and the minyo singers became very popular in this period owed to the mass media. So through media, regional music became the nationwide circulated music. That's why some of the minyo in the Joseon dynasty only remained like a regional style. But during this period, some of the minyo singers become very famous. They just got a fame in like a national level. And also there's a lots of kind of minyo competition, and then all of the different regional kind of minyo singers come together to win the competition, and they became very famous. And then they also started kind of tongsok minyo, so popular style folk song. At the same time, there's also a new style folk song, new shinminyo was also introduced at the time. Also, maybe we should mention here that who was the transmitter of kugak during the time. The mostly for the court music was transmitted through Iwangjik Akbo people, and then they also tried to keep their own heritage. So they just started a school for the like a middle school curriculum and high school curriculum. So they started a student with like nine students, and then they still going on. And then now the National Center is actually they are the Iwangjik Akbo, and the Iwangjik Akbo Institute for the Education is a kind of ancestor for the National Kugak Center. And for the folk music's case, a bit different. For the folk music, mostly like a kiseng, what we call the female entertainers, where they have to, they were the mostly actively performed kind of bodies of performers during this period. They have to work as they have to sign up if they have to be a part of this performance field. So they were signed up for the Kwonban Association. So female entertainment associations, Kwonban, and also other like educational institutions by folk musicians, or they formed a special association to perform or create new types of music during this time. But the problem was kugak or traditional music and dance were excluded from the public school education from that time on. So many kugak people still say that that was the kind of biggest problem. That the Korean music is having a problem at this moment. Okay, these are some of the photos. Maybe some of them are like not real photos. That is only prepared. This is a kind of the image of Joseon that was spread out from the Japanese colonial power. So, but still, you can see lots of musical instruments. And then on top, maybe you can see haegum, the fiddle, the first instrument. The second one is daegum, it's a bamboo flute. And the third one is piri, and the other one is jango, drum. And then the bottom one, still you can see the Chango Haegum, and then Yangum, the dulcimer, and then Komungo on the left. You still see the same photo here. Still the image of Ki-sang on top. Ki-sang is playing the traditional instrument, and then some of the folk music performance. Okay, and then also female performers are playing the sword dance and then other dances along with the musicians here. And then this is the drawing of the theater at the time. So Gwangmudae on the left, and then Wongaksa or Hyamyulsa on the right. And then maybe still you can see some of the folk plays. And then on the bottom you can see the puppet theater on the bottom. So these are the actually modern development of the traditional. So during that time, like early 20th century, everything was mixed up. So folk music became more popular or nationwide circulated through this mass media and the new forms of entertainment like a concert or theaters. And that was really happened during the 20th century. And then still you can see a lot of images of Ki-sang playing traditional instrument and then also kuga. So this was the kind of the images that Koreans have because of this. Okay, this is also. And then, as I said earlier, some of the pansori singers became very famous after released their recording. This is the photos and then about the article about it. Okay, and then also the court musicians joined to make a recording and then release their own recording. The first ritual music was appeared in the public radio station was 1927. So Iwangjik Apu appeared regularly after that, and they said that was the first kind of public appearance of court music. And then they say it was forbidden it was hidden and for the commoners, and then now it opened to the common people. And then later they released the album 1928, and then also they also appeared often in the films, and so they try musicians of court music and folk music at this time try to kind of reveal themselves to the modern audience quite often. Okay, yeah, this is still the same photo. It's very famous pansori singer Song Man-gap. Okay, these are some of the recordings, SP albums of the minyo of the time. Okay, here I would like to hear some of the music of that time of the recording. This recording was like SP album, SP recording that was recorded in 1942 from the Japanese like a Victor record company, and then it is like a released like later, much later in the 1990s. Okay, so maybe I don't know if you heard of ritual music or 국악원's performance nowadays. The music is quite different that we hear today. So that is what is going on, what happened during the 20th century. So maybe now music is more grandeur because its ensemble itself is bigger compared to those times. Okay, I have prepared some more other musics, but since we don't have enough time, so I will try to finish short as possible. Then if we have enough time, we will listen to more music. Is it okay? Okay, after independence, the institute, like 이왕직 악보, gained a new name, 구왕국 악보. It's called Old Dynasty's Court Music Department. After liberation, the peninsula soon became a space of divided ideologies. During this period, one of the biggest goals of Korean music circle was to establish and identify for Korean national music. This was also fueled by competition between the two Koreas. From the beginning, the Lee-sun regime mobilized a diverse cultural apparatus to evoke historical authenticity and the legitimacy of the regime. The government invented public rituals to recollect and celebrate the origin of Koreans. By granting national status to the arts, the government tried to underline the national significance of the arts. During this period, the institute gained national status and was renamed as a 국립국악원, National Kookak Center. But actually, that name was not given by the government. That was the musicians. Several times they just kind of wanted the government to move and to give a new name. So that was a result of the musicians' endeavor. As many already noticed, the nationalism has exerted an important influence in the formation of a modern nation during the post-colonial period in Korea. In Korean case, Korea has continuously produced a variety of discourses on the issue of nationalism, which include like moderate nationalism, leftist nationalism, and the people's nationalism, among others. Moreover, nationalism has taken an important role in establishing the belief that Koreans are of one ethnic community who share the same language and origin. Furthermore, national identity was the highest position among various identities of individual citizens of Koreans during the modernization of the nation. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, characterized by economic development as well as social and political turmoil, 국악 functions as an important tool to stimulate ethnic sentiment to the people supported by the government, which was referred to as a nationalism from above. However, people's nationalism, which began as an anti-hegemonic, anti-governmental resistance movement in the 1980s by the non-elite members of the society, has revived and emphasized traditional culture and was employed as a sort of cultural movement from the bottom. For the nationalism in any camp, the important issue was to support and promote what was Korean and or traditional. In this sense, traditional music 국악 was supported by the government as a nationalism from the above. At the same time, like mask dance or other forms of folk music was also stimulated, supported by this anti-government, anti-hegemonic powers from the nationalism from the bottom. So that was the moment of 1980s. So maybe, I don't know if you were in Korea during the time, lots of like a demonstration or anti-government campaigns, they employed lots of 풍물 instrument like 북 or 꽹과리 and 장구. And they do, when they do have a labor movement, they do employ this because they believe that this traditional music has a strong link to those of ideas of people of this country. Okay, so we'll move. So since the late 1950s, the Korean government promoted a diverse project to reinvent, preserve, recollect, and develop 민족, or ethnic or national music. Strong state nationalism protected, promoted, and redefined tradition, and the repertoires and the performance practices of Kuga were canonized, and then sanctified, and then authenticated under the banner of tradition. The repertoires and performance practice were recontextualized as the heritage of Koreans, and the kugak genres became like intangible culture property since 1962. And the 종묘 제례악, the royal ancestral shrine music, became the #1, even though no longer Joseon dynasty exists. But still, this is a very important history for Korean people to share and to promote the nationalism, the sense of a strong, like a nationalistic identity. And the practitioners also of the musicians became what we call as a human culture properties. So this was big change for Kugak people, because before that, somebody was looked down because they were from the Kiseng Association or from their low-class entertainment, but now they become they earned the level of national. So that kind of becomes a big changes for the musicians. But at the same time, still, many Koreans still remember the past of Kugak. So that was also a problem that they cannot really enjoy as it was. So in this process, court music and 풍류 music became the major repertoire for the new National Institute, 국립국악원. So now 국립국악원's most important repertoire is court music and the 풍류 music of the Joseon dynasty. And the repertoires of 판소리 and 산조, 신화위, the folk art music, and then also 민요, redefined and canonized, and also all becomes a staged art. So, for example, and also a new kind of performance practice, like full performance of pansori. I don't know if you heard, if you were attended a pansori performance. How long? How many hours? Like 10 minutes. More than 1 hour. 8 hours. Yeah, so that was the thing. Like this full performance of pansori was actually newly invented during the modern period. Because it's an epic storytelling and the performance, and actually there is no such a standardized length of the full performance. And then there's also different schools, and different musicians have a different transmission lineage, so they do have all different kind of length and then stories, and then still during this a modern period, full performance, what they call it 완창 판소리, is also set up. And there is a new practice became standardized, and then nowadays, to become a good pansori singer, they should have passed this full performance, 완창 pansori. So that is kind of newly invented in a way. And however, Kugak in general was not well received by the general audience. There's lots of reasons that people still have a kind of two different kind of emotions toward the Kugak. One is, okay, I'm proud of it because it's national music, but at the same time, I'm kind of shameful because it was the music of the lowly class, or music, maybe people kind of try to overcome their own past, and that was also reflected on the status of Kugak itself, I think. Okay, and then institutionalization of Kugak. The nationwide support for Kugak was realized through the property system, and the establishment of a Korean music major department within universities. The two versions of transmission system now existed, and one is an important cultural heritage system that's set up during the 1960s, and then also modern educational institution like high school and the university. The modern educational system of Kugak also stimulated a canonization of musical repertoires and the standardization of major instruments. The Department of Music at the Seoul National University began a new department on Kugak in 1959. For the first year, the 30 students entered the university with a Kookak major, and this brings the birth of elite Kookak musicians. Actually, they are different from the musicians from the past. And the major categories of music major instrument have set up, for example, like 가야금, 검은고, 해금, 대금, 피리, 5 melodic instruments for major. So students, when they got into the school, they can choose from those majors or vocal genres like pansori or 가고 or 민요. So now we have a 민요 performers, but in the beginning, there's no 민요 major at the Seoul National University because it was a folk music. So for the to educate the student within the institutionalized institution, they set up the certain categories of curriculum, and then like first 2 years they study court music and 풍류 music, and the third year they study folk music like sanjo, and the fourth year they study new composition. So this is kind of give students have a balance to study all different areas of Korean music. And also certain repertoires were selected for the education curriculum. Through this standardization, the boundary of Kookak have defined and continued until today. At the same time, modern Kookak orchestra began during the 1960s. The first modernized Kookak orchestra was a Seoul City Kookak Orchestra, Seoul 시립 국악단, in 1965. This large-scale modern orchestra of Kookak instrument emerged as part of a quest to create a new national music, and furthermore created for secure the job for the new elite Kookak musicians. After they graduate from the university, they have to be employed. They need a job. So that's why then an orchestra need a lot of people, their members. So that's why that was one of the reasons that it started an orchestra. Orchestra comprising traditional instrument yet modeled on this Western counterpart had begun to appear in countries throughout Asia in the mid-20th century. Traditional orchestras were established in China in the 1920s, and Japan in 1964, Hong Kong in 1971, and Taiwan in 1984. And Singapore in 1985, and North Korea during the 1960s too, among other sites, and strongly connected to domestic efforts focused on contemporizing traditional instrument and musical genres. The goal of many national orchestras in Asia has been to create a modern medium for expressing traditional aesthetics in a modern format, and the Korean case is no exception. So at this moment, currently, like 38 orchestra nationwide, including like national or city like municipal or like provincial orchestras like 국립, 도립, 시립 orchestras or Kookak orchestra. As a result, Kookak in any form, old and new, original or hybrid, or newly invented, were supported to promote nationalism at the same time to display the nation's achievement of modernity. And for the practitioners, this was a big chance to find their own position under the special or new modern nation, modern society. Thus, Kookak, once it was heritage, now was a folk, to become national and then also modern artistic form. So I'll show you some of the photos of the 1960s. Maybe you already know the 가야금 player Hwang Byung-gi. He began a new composition on the 가야금 in the 1962. That was his first composition for the 가야금. And so like he became very famous like at home and abroad. And also she's the Professor Lee Jae-soo from the Seoul National University. She's the kind of first, she entered for the first year, and then she becomes the professor at the Seoul National University when she becomes 27. So in Seoul National University, like history of Seoul National University, she's the youngest professor to get like a full-time position. And then she also set up like a concert for the kayagum. And then it was a quite new practice at the time. And then that was like modeled like Western art music of the time. And then this is the, as you might know, it's a Kugak orchestra, modern Kugak orchestra, and this is the picture. And then as I said earlier, like a Samulori performance began in 1978 in a small theater, 공간 사랑, and then later it became very popular at home and abroad. And then nowadays, most of the very internationally renowned musicians are actually at the Samulori performers at this moment. After achieving the label of the national, modernization was the biggest challenge for musicians. Kugak musicians strive to get the attention from general public and try to set up the new images through new musical repertoires and performance practice and new and modern style of music. Newly composed repertoires based on Kugak began during the 1950s earliest, and the establishment of modern Kugak orchestra and the Kugak department, and furthermore increased the number of musicians, have expanded the needs for the new music too. The 1980s proved a period of remarkable expansion in new music for Kugak. The slogan popularization of Kugak began during the 1980s. Along with the slogan, several ensembles began producing new Kugak, and these new styles and attempts included arranging Euro-American pop or classical melodies for Kugak instrument and creating new folk song style music. Emergence of new Kugak pop song, Kugak Kayo, fusion style Kugak or crossover Kugak appeared. Maybe for me it's like easy listening type of music, but still for the Kugak people it was quite a new music, and also it wasn't really easy to just play because the tuning of the musical instrument was not really easy to tune to Western music. The popularization becomes a central concern for the groups like Seulgi-dung and Aolim. They began to use the synthesizers or classical guitars or like electronic instrument as well as standard Kugak instrument. New style popular Kugak songs became popular along with the sense of ethnic nationalism during the 1980s among younger generation of people. For example, like some of the Kim Young-dong's music, he had a lot of hit song on Kugak Kayo idiom. For example, like 어디로 갈 거나, that was a very famous song during the time, became quite popular after used by Korean films too. Many of these songs and music were aimed to broadcast through popular media and also help to outreach new Kugak. So we will listen to one of the music of this kind. This is 1980s version of New Kugak. So now you have an idea what music it is. It's a Pile Blues canon. And so like this type of music is they try to perform like a classical music or European pop music on the kayagum or on other traditional instrument. And of course they also produce like a new compositions too. For example, like this one. Maybe you have to, I don't know if you heard of like a modified kayagum, like a 25-string kayagum. This is actually the kayagum trio during the 1980s. And then this trio was formed before the actual modification of the musical instrument of the kayagum. So they just try to use the traditional kayagum to produce this type of music. So maybe I can hear that how hard they play this type of music. They have to press to make a proper tone to kind of equivalent to Western tones. But nowadays, after like the 1990s, the modification of the musical instrument began. So that really changed it. The whole environment of musical practice. Okay, these are some of the photos of the time, mostly like a record jacket of their album. So the music that you just heard from the right on your right side, and then I will move to. Okay, toward the globalization of Kugak. This course of globalization and the strong government support on globalization on traditional culture began during the 1990s and 2000s. The turn of the 21st century has seen a highlighting of Kugak marketing in tandem with that of pop culture and campaigns for globalization. This is also began with the globalization of Korean music project initiative launched by Korean government during the 2000s amidst a national rhetoric of globalization and addressing the global audience. In addition, rising demand for the globalization and traditional music was spurred on by the huge worldwide success of K-pop and the popular culture domain. A global market-driven focus can be witnessed in government-supported promotions of Kugak. The globalization of Korean music is, on the one hand, a recent phenomenon of the 21st century, but on the other hand, can also be understood as inherited strategies of popularization and the modernization for musicians of Kugak that sought to garner attention from audience from the 20th century. A lack of attention from the domestic audience drove musicians toward the global market out of a combination of self-diagnosis and the lessons of the past. For example, like Samulori's big success, international big success of Kim Deok-soo Samulori group, and also incorporating the glorious success of stories of some musicians like international like Hwang Byung-gi and Kim Deok-soo. Along with the strong support from the government and the endeavors of musicians, and now Korean music becomes one of the most visible on world music scene during the 2000s in international world music festivals, theaters, and institutions. These are some of the photos that is what is going on in Kugak field now. Maybe when you're referring, if you still remember some of the photos that I show you of the early 20th century, what is going on in the Kugak field is totally different and it's a lot of change. And then also, these are the photos. Maybe their presentation style and the mode of dress, and also even the musical repertoires, musical instrument, and then everything has changed. And then at the same time, the traditional repertoires are still performed in the several Kugak concerts, especially the Kookmin Kugak-1. But still, like a new music or new fusion type of music has arose to meet the needs of modern audience too. So these are famous Kookmin. Okay, now I'll show you some of these pictures and then I will just conclude. The almost like 100 years experience of modernizing Kugak suggests that the process has been multi-directional and then also was experienced differently by the various agents involved in varying contexts. Social values and meaning of contemporary Kugak are constantly being negotiated, reaffirmed, and reinforced. Throughout this lecture, I discuss aspects of Kugak as practiced by people whose attitude, perceptions, conflicts, and desires are deeply rooted in an understanding of the past, present, and the future of music. And I argue that the modern traditional music is a site for negotiating. and redefining meanings of tradition beyond the concept of heritage. Thank you very much.